Welcome to an exciting edition of Game Day Wrap-Up. Week 6 edition. Mike St. Green is back with us, and he's here to recap all of Week 6's action. I got to say, Sunday made Saturday look like nothing. that Sunday slate this week was unbelievable.
A great slate of games today, Cam. It was great to be back to be able to see all of the action and looking forward to what the rest of the season has in store for us, that's for sure.
Yeah, you can send Robert Garrett a message that says, haha, I got the better day of action. Let's start with the first undefeated team going down. St. Louis playing London. You think about this team, Jeff Gagne's mom passes away, team wears cancer, tribute uniforms. A lot of guys on the team have been affected by cancer here, particularly recently. London is falling backwards. They're 2-3. St. Louis is the talk of the town. And London comes all the way to the States. Looks terrible. I mean, terrible, Mike, for, I don't know, almost 2 quarters in this game. And then all of a sudden, London just springs to life, gets a couple touchdowns right before the half, and they hold on to beat St. Louis 31-23. St. Louis will be eating more fish and chips as London continues to own that rivalry, now up 5-2. But your thoughts, Mike, on St. Louis going down this week to London, who was below 500 coming in?
Yeah, St. Louis, basically we're looking like the St. Louis we've come to see this season, throwing the ball a lot, not turning it over, playing great defense, and then all of a sudden London just turned everything around. Huge touchdown pass from McLean to Sarah Storm in that game, got London rolling. Next thing you know, they were up 21 points. St. Louis tried a valiant comeback to remain undefeated, but fell short in the end.
Fell short's a good way to put it, Mike, because it was the short pass that did in Christian Brown. And actually the sack put Christian Brown in a 4th and long position. That London defensive line is pretty underrated. They have really looked good a lot of this year. And hey, watch out. London is 3-3. They're playing some pretty good football right now.
Yeah, London, they definitely pride themselves on having a great defense. That's the way they look to win games. But I also want to point out, too, that I failed to mention, Robert Merrill had a big game today. 83 yards, but that matched his season total so far through 5 games, and had 83 yards today. And
on the nose. That's unbelievable.
That allowed London, to have a balanced attack on offense. They weren't, relying on Angus McLean as much. He had an efficient day, 222 yards, couple touchdown passes. But Robert Merrill getting it done on the ground really helped London out today.
You can't make that stuff up. That's unbelievable. And then 2 hours later, Houston goes to Denver. I mean, talk about a team in turmoil. I mean, just up and down, up and down. This team is a roller coaster on and off the field. And from the moment the game started, Houston looked ready to play. And Eric Vincent said it at the beginning of the broadcast. Houston just seems to show up in games that people think they don't stand a chance in. And that is Houston's underdog mentality. And they defeat Denver today, 38-23. It looked like there for a while that Denver was going to come back and win that game. They had all the momentum, and then Riley Quintero fumbles the punt return, and it's recovered by the Houston offense, and then they end up scoring a touchdown later in that drive. It was a huge back-breaking play, and Denver loses at home to Seattle, for the first time in the regular season since they lost to Seattle 11 months ago. And now there's no more undefeated teams in the SFL. Crazy.
Yeah, hats off to Houston today. As you mentioned, man, it's been a controversial week for them, but they remain focused tonight. Came out, guns a-blazing, jumped on Denver early, And actually Denver would basically look like they were going to turn it around after a couple of mishaps by Houston on a missed field goal and a fumble inside of the red zone when they were going in to score again. It looked like Denver maybe weathered the storm a little bit, but hey, give Houston credit. They kept a foot on the gas, got everything turned around. Warren Murray had a pretty big game late in the second half, and they managed to hang on for a win. And the defense was great as well. Raul Galar with a couple of interceptions, along with Ethan Kai, and the defense made a difference today in getting Houston that victory.
Yeah, it's just crazy to think that Houston is 3-3, and now because of Lone Star's 0-2 record in the division, Houston leapfrogs them, and Lone Star is at last in the South right now, and the Atlantic also doesn't have any teams below 500, and it's just, the South and the Atlantic. We were talking a little bit off air, Mike. It's just those two divisions are the most exciting divisions in the league right now. And don't look now, but what a day for the North, too. Queen City, London, and Baltimore all got wins.
Yeah, that was a big win for Queen City to try to, keep their head above water and remain competitive in that division. And a huge win for London to try to keep pace with Baltimore for that division title. They're 2 games back, but big win not to go down 3 games in that division.
Yeah, and they've already lost to Baltimore, so they can't fall down any further. And London only plays Baltimore once. So yeah, they're going to be having to sit on that tiebreaker loss all season long. Well, speaking of Baltimore, this game was crazy. If you watch the game back on demand, you might notice that the score's all wrong. So SFL headquarters in the late stages of this game in the fourth quarter, first of all, 7-3 at the half, defensive game, offenses explode in the second half. At one point, 7 of the 8 second half possessions had resulted in points. It was a back and forth game. And then Vancouver was up 27-24. And all of a sudden, SFL HQ goes under a tornado warning. The sirens are going off. We have to take shelter for a possible, you just never know what's going to happen in those tornado warning situations. It's serious stuff. So we leave the studio, let the broadcasters call the game, hoping that we don't lose power, right? And of course, the game goes to overtime. Baltimore forces overtime, and then Mike, I'm trying to remember correctly. I think Baltimore got an interception, ran it all the way back, got tackled at about, the 15, but regulation had ended, right? So,
yeah, Giovanni Bolt had an interception late in that game. Actually, after Chalkington had hit a 52-yard field goal to tie this game up to what seemingly we assume would send it into overtime. But with 8 seconds left, Tom Pepper threw one of his 3 interceptions to Bolt. Bolt was stopped short of the goal line, and that helped send us into overtime. And then Bolt immediately had another interception to start overtime and give Baltimore the win.
So then they go to overtime, and Bolt gets another interception. And meanwhile, I'm watching from a bathtub with 3 pets and a fiance in this little tiny bathroom, and it's just a crazy game, and Baltimore ends up winning 30-27. Vancouver still has not beaten Baltimore, and the last time Baltimore came to Vancouver, they won it in the final seconds as well. So Baltimore improves to 5-1, Vancouver improves to 3-3. A lot to unpack in this one. Where do you want to begin, Mike?
Let's start with T-Roy Gaines. T-Roy Gaines had a big game today. He's been struggling to get anything going on the ground this season. 3 touchdowns on the ground for T-Roy. It was good to see him getting going. And another interesting point in this game, if you remember, Lloyd Graham Jr. went out early in the first quarter with an injury in this game and came back and made a huge impact on this game with a few big catches in the second half.
Yeah, that was huge. That was huge. I think he didn't break his wrist, but it was a wrist injury.
Right.
That was really outstanding what he was able to do for his team. Let's shift to Vancouver just for a second. This team is desperate for a signature win. Anytime they go up against the best in the league, they end up coming up short. It's not that they can't play with them. It's just that they can't beat them. Their 3 losses this year to 5-1 Baltimore, 4-2 LA, and 5-1 St. Louis. And 2 of those 3 teams lost today, which hurts Vancouver's strength of schedule just a bit. Vancouver still has Jacksonville twice left on their schedule. So this is starting to haunt Houston. They just need a big win against a big team, and they can't seem to get it no matter how hard and how well they play. They played great today.
Yeah, they definitely played great, Cam. They've actually played great probably all 6 weeks of the season, but just seemed to fall short. As for playing great, Tom Pepper had a great game today, 448 yards passing, 3 touchdowns, but those 2 huge interceptions at the end of the game really cost Vancouver. And but I wouldn't sleep on Vancouver. Vancouver, I think, will be fine. Going down the stretch. Just happen to come up short, not making the big plays at the right time. But I think they'll get things turned around coming down the second half of the season.
They're the best 3-3 team, right, Mike? I mean, there's a lot of them now, but they've got to be the best one, yeah?
Yeah, I would tend to agree. I look at the standings right now. Maybe I would give a consideration to Lone Star, but just overall, just looking at it, I would give that nod to Vancouver right now.
I'm just spitballing. Houston, Lone Star, London, Vancouver, Arizona, Carolina, Charleston. Did I miss anybody? That's a third of the league.
Atlanta, Tulsa,
Atlanta, yeah. So that's at least 8 of them. And we may have left somebody out. 8 teams that are now 500 entering week 7. Oh, it's going to be a mess. The wild card if that keeps up.
Oh, yeah. It's going to be an interesting second half for sure.
Oh, man. And Vancouver down in the mix with that bunch. Shifting to Saturday's action, the highlight of Saturday was Sioux Falls getting off the mat. 0-5. They host Florida, 4-1. Sioux Falls had not played Florida in I think, nearly a year. I heard the broadcaster say it had been a while since the 2 teams had played. And Sioux Falls finally kind of looked like their old selves. Mm-hmm. They weren't perfect by any means, but they went up. This game was crazy. All these games have been crazy. Florida scores 30 seconds into the game. Sioux Falls scores the next 24 points and then holds on for dear life to get the victory and thanks their defense for the win. And they don't fall to 0-6. The worst Sioux Falls has ever finished is 6-6. They're now 1-5. And Florida stumbles in a head scratcher to 4-2. They still do lead the division, but not by much.
I tell you what, Cam, with this Sioux Falls victory, the league better, be put on notice with this win. They haven't gone to the last, 2 championship games for nothing. I think this is a huge, huge win for their ego, their moxie, whatever you want to call it, because they've gotten off the schneid. They've been competitive in recent weeks in a lot of games. They just happen not to get over the hump. But look out, anybody that's on Sioux Falls' schedule going into the second half. And yeah, as you mentioned, Florida had a huge opportunity to take a leg up in the Atlantic Division, and now they're tied with Jacksonville. And as you mentioned, the other 2 teams in this division are 500 as well. So it's going to be a tough road going down the stretch in Atlantic for Florida, and want to stay on top and get this automatic bid.
All right, mid-season winners, and we're not going to call them losers. We'll say head scratchers. Winners and head scratchers. The only loser here is Mike St. Green. But Mike, you're kidding, of course. Mike, your first winner of the first half of the SFL's regular season is which team?
Cam, when you first posed this question to me, I was going to go a different direction, but then now looking over the teams, the one team that I think is my first half win is going to be Fort Worth.
Yeah.
No one expected Fort Worth to be 5-1
Great
at
pick.
this point. They struggled coming out of the gate offensively. They've been great defensively the entire season, but no one saw this coming. So Fort Worth, a solid first half of the season. They're definitely the biggest winner in this season thus far.
Yeah, that's a great pick. I really like that pick a lot. I'm gonna go Tulsa. Tulsa was 3-9 last season. They get a rookie quarterback. Deacon Nickens retires. They start a new season. They're 0-3. St. Louis seems to be running away with the division, right? There was at one point nobody in that division that was even close to St. Louis. Atlanta comes out of the gate. They kind of struggle. Louisiana comes out of the gate. They kind of struggle. And Tulsa wins 3 in a row. They've now equaled their win total, and they're 2 games out of the division lead with St. Louis's loss today, and they have yet to play St. Louis, and they play them twice, meaning that Tulsa really controls their destiny in this all of a sudden clumping Eastern Division. Louisiana won today, Atlanta won today, Tulsa won, right? So this division looks a lot closer than it did at the start of the week. And Tulsa's got to be feeling pretty good about themselves. And while they're only 500, it's been a big step up, and Tulsa is my midseason winner. Lo and behold.
Yeah, that's a great pick as well, Cam. They have definitely answered the bell, gotten them off the canvas, and come out swinging, and have turned things totally around after being 0-3. So yeah, Tulsa definitely deserves credit for being a first half winner.
All right, Mike, who's your head scratcher from the first 6 weeks?
Oh, my head scratcher is going to come out of that same division, and it's going to be Louisiana, and I'll tell you why. I personally, thought Louisiana would be head and shoulders above almost everybody in the league this season. Had a great season last season, season 15, and I just expected them to hit the ground running. Did get a win this week. Maybe they're trying to dig themselves out of it and turn things around. But yet, starting the season, Johnny Pickler had a huge turnover ratio wasn't great. Reggie Streeter was struggling to get anything going. But maybe after this week we can see something different. But right now, yeah, they were a little disappointing coming out of the gate for me. So yeah, they're my first half head scratcher.
There's a lot of different ways we could go with this. And I agree with you on Louisiana, although it does look like they're slowly starting to put things together. I don't get LA, Mike. I don't get that. I don't understand how this team can beat Vancouver and look so outstanding, right? And I mean, they've beaten Houston, which is now an above 500 team, or a 500 team. They've beaten Vancouver, who's a 500 team. But golly, 2 road trips, 2 Queen City and 2 Florida. And it's not that they lost the games, Mike. It's almost like they kind of have a little Lone Star in them, in the sense that some of these games, they just don't show up. They just don't. Right. They don't look the same. They look less explosive. I mean, I know it's crazy to say, 4-2. It's not that they're a head scratcher because they haven't had a great first half. It's that they're a head scratcher because I just don't really know what to make of them yet. They're 6 games into new ownership, and I don't know. Jury's still out. What do you think? Am I undervaluing this team, or?
I think so slightly. I think so slightly, Cam. My initial thought is just keep them off the East Coast and they'll be fine. but yeah, I think you're undervaluing them a little bit. I really have LA pretty high on my list. I mean, the offense, Sully Richardson has been great. Robert Johnson has been fantastic. These guys are high flying on offense. They typically play very well on defense, turning the ball over quite a bit on the defensive side of the ball. So, just a few hiccups on the road the way I see it, but I think they'll be fine going down the stretch.
Honorable mention: Houston. Figure it out. They just beat Denver, but they're a roller coaster like I've never seen. But they got it
Oh,
done,
yeah.
and they're 3-3 in the midst in that South Division. All right, game balls, Mike. We've got one each for week 6, and then we'll have a midseason game ball as well. There's 480 players in this league, so we could go just about anywhere. But let's start in week 6. Your game ball for week 6 goes to who, Mike?
This week 6 game ball is going to really be tough, but it's going to come out of the Arizona-Portland game. Arizona put up huge offensive numbers today, and in particular, Donnie Hands, who was turning into one of the most explosive receivers in the league this season. These huge plays every week, it seems like, but 7 catches, 220 yards.
Wow.
4 touchdowns, if I'm not mistaken.
I had no idea he had that much.
Yeah, 31.5 per reception. So Donnie Hands is going to get my game ball this week.
That was during the tornado warning, so you'll
Yeah.
have to forgive me for not knowing that. But wow, that's an incredible day for Donnie Hands and Arizona, and Donnie won it for Ashley, right? Ashley,
Yes.
Boy, it's been a tough week in the SFL. We've had a lot of players, family members passing on, and our thoughts with Ashley and Jeff and everybody that's suffering right now. But Ashley Jackson gets the win, and Donnie Hands was a big help to that. And Arizona's now 3-3. I'm going to go Jonathan Camp. I am trying to remember the last time a defensive end scored a touchdown in the SFL, and it's been a really long time. Jonathan Camp, a funny story. Well, maybe not so funny for Sioux Falls, but in week 1 there was a roster glitch, and Jonathan Camp actually didn't play in week 1. And Sioux Falls D-line certainly missed him. Fast forward 5 weeks later, and Camp is not only getting a sack, but recovering a fumble and returning it for the touchdown. Probably the slowest touchdown other than maybe Kai Cash on the kickoff return for Houston, because he looked totally gassed. Although Kramer Jackman looked a lot more gassed there. That was a very slow effort to make that tackle on the kick return. And shout out to Kai Cash for the league's second kick return touchdown this season. But Jonathan Camp, I mean, just the sack and the touchdown alone get a game ball for me. Defensive linemen don't get a lot of love, and you deserve some love, and so does Sioux Falls for getting their first win. So my game ball goes to Jonathan Camp.
That's a great performance by them yesterday. Was that today?
Yesterday. So,
Yesterday,
if you're watching this on Monday, then it would be Saturday.
It'll be Saturday. Yeah, great performance by Camp in that game, getting Sioux Falls off the snide, and can't say anything more about it.
By the end of the weekend, Mike and I don't know what day it is. We watch so many dang games, it's crazy. Okay, this is going to be a big honor. Mid-season game ball, your shining star through 6 weeks. Who you got, Mike?
Wow, Cam, it's been great defensive performances all over the league this first half. I mean, offensively as well, but it just seems like more of the defensive players have stood out to me thus far this season. Mid-season game ball is going to go to Iverson Gamble.
I knew you were going to do it. All right, fine. Why Iverson Gamble, Mike?
Well, I think he has 6 interceptions so far this year, 3 pick sixes. Arizona's defense has struggled a little bit far as points per game wise, but hey, they've done enough to stay in games. The defense had a huge game a week ago against Las Vegas, and this week they did just enough to keep Portland in check. Iverson didn't have a big game today, but he has up until this point. Iverson Gamble gets my midseason game ball.
I'm going to go with, you always say, I go with some crazy, under the radar, throwing shade at Whistle Jones type stuff. You always say I'm doing it. I'm going to go really obvious, and I'm just going to say Jared McChesney.
Wow.
Even
Okay.
in the loss, he had over 100 yards. He's on pace to do about 1,650 this season. And this has been a different season, Mike. The league went to a new game setting. Defenses are playing better. Scoring is a little bit down. And still, yet, McChesney is a monster. He's impossible to contain. Teams are trying. Louisiana held him to around 100. Houston held him to around 100. I mean, people are putting together game plans, but the guy is a beast, and it could be easy to go somewhere else. But I'm gonna take the straightaway. I'm going McChesney for my midseason game ball because he has been unwavering through all of this change.
Cam, we are spending entirely too much time together. Jared, Jared McChesney, I was back and forth with either McChesney or Gamble.
Really? So we had the two.
Yeah, he was my offensive guy, and like I said, in spite of the loss today, he had a big game. 114 yards was more or less holding this guy in check. But yeah, thus far he's definitely been the best player on offense in the league in the first half of the season. Yeah, he was definitely would have gotten my offensive game ball for sure.
I think we might be the first duo that live in different states to say that we've been spending entirely too much time together in the middle of a pandemic.
Well, Cam, we actually spent Valentine's Day together, so hey, that means something.
We did. We should have given each other Valentine's Day gifts. We didn't do that. I guess we're not the sappy type, and we're more of the plain colored shirts type. I've noticed both of us tend to stick to the basic colors, and it's funny actually. A side note, as the league commissioner, I always have to be cautious of what I dress because if I wear a color of a team that we're covering that day that's a big TV game, then I'll look like I'm playing a favorite. So you go to the closet and like today, wearing blue because Atlanta has a totally different type of blue. I guess Carolina was wearing blue today, so I whiffed on that. I am not a Carolina homer. I just have to put the disclaimer out there. But yeah, it's it's something that we have to think about. It's very important what we look like, right, Mike? Spend a lot of time on it.
Well, I try to, look as dapper as I can from time to time. But and yeah, this green definitely didn't represent St. Louis or anybody or Queen City or even a little slight green that Atlanta has. So it didn't represent any of you guys. So I'm just here to call it as I see it, Cam.
That's right. Well, what a great week 6. We can't wait for you to check out week 7. 11 Sports Network is now rebranded Next Level Sports. You can catch the SFL, same channels everywhere you saw 11 Sports, but 11 Sports is now Next Level Sports, and more information about that on our website, simulationfl.net. We've been working behind the scenes to get all of our graphics updated to next level. So can't wait to kick off week 7 there. Sunday on FTF, another 4.5-hour block each day. And I can't wait to do it again with you, Mike. It was a great week 6.
Hey, can't wait to do it again next week. Any given sim day. We had some great action today. Looking forward to the second half of the season for sure.
Sounds good, Mike. Until then, for Mike St. Green, I'm Cameron Irvine, and we'll see you next weekend.